Yo, what is going on, you guys? Welcome back to a brand new Marvel Spider-Man 2 pre-write video. This is the third part, and yes, there will be 4 parts. I did say there was going to be 3, but there is going to be 4 now because this part just got so long and there was so much more to cover that I just had to split it up into 4 parts. But if you have not watched part 1 and 2 yet, a link will be in the description down below to part 1. With that being said, if you're new around here, enjoy all types of Spider-Man content, including all the news about the movies, games, and shows, and also enjoy fan fiction type videos like these, make sure to hit that subscribe button and make sure to hit the bell next to the subscribe button so you can stay in the loop. With that out of the way, let's get straight into it. Marvel Spider-Man 2 Pre-Write Part 3. Peter returns to his home in Queens. MJ isn't there. Peter wonders where she is. He opens up his phone and calls her. MJ says that she sat with Sergei Kraven, the man who helped him fight the lizard. Peter gulps and MJ says that she's interviewing him. Peter, enticed by the symbiote, lets the emotion from previously in the story grab a hold of him. He tells her he's dangerous and she shouldn't be around him. MJ asks what the hell is he on about? Kraven helped stop the lizard. Peter angrily puts the phone down and MJ carries on her interview. Peter's selfishness is at an all-time high. His ego, stress, and anger are being taken out on the ones he loves. It's evident to us that the symbiote represents this anger he feels within the story, and over the next portion of the game it will keep building until it all boils over. We cut over to MJ where she's at her interview with Kraven, and none other than Norman Osborn enters the building. Osborn is taken back by MJ, not expecting her to be there. Kraven introduces both of them and Norman says no need as he already knows Mary Jane. She was a friend of Peter's and Harry's in high school. They catch up and Norman finds out that her and Peter are together, and Norman says that's brilliant news. Norman asks MJ if she can cut the interview short. He has some very important business to attend to with Sergei. MJ is miffed off as she doesn't have enough material for her story. Thus, we are thrusted into the next MJ mission of the game. This mission will require us to sneak back into the room with Norman and Kraven to see what the gossip is about. MJ wants to know what Norman Osborn could possibly want with Kraven the Hunter. As far as they're both concerned, they live on different sides of the planet in terms of profession. We sneakily find our way back into the room and listen in to Kraven and Norman. We hear Norman start to become frustrated and anxious, very out of character for Osborn. Kraven is discussing wages with him, and this catches MJ's attention. Norman says to just bring back the black suit in one piece and he'll give him as much money as he wants. Kraven asks what is to become of Spider-Man. Norman says that after the stress he's caused, preferably dead, but at this point in time he doesn't care, he just wants the suit back. Kraven says he'll begin right away. Norman says that he's had weapons and tech personally delivered to him as they exit the room. MJ is shocked. She must inform Peter. We cut back to Peter, who is out stopping crime at nighttime. Peter will narrate to himself. Everything in his head is amplified 10 times over. At least the lizard is stopped. That's all that matters. He then gets a call from MJ. MJ tries to tell him that Kraven is after him. Norman just hired Kraven to take back the black suit away from him. Peter says that she's lying and this is just another way of trying to get him to take off the suit. Peter says that he's stronger than ever and he can stop more crime than ever. If Kraven is coming after him, he says to bring it on. Peter puts the phone down, saying he's had enough of people trying to tell him that suit's bad for him and making up excuses and that it's not right. Peter knows what's right. We cut back to MJ. She starts to grow more suspicious about the symbiote. There is something that she doesn't know. Something is afoot. Norman seemed out of character when he was with Kraven. Desperate even. There's something about the suit that Peter has that Norman needs it for. Maybe it could be a breaking story. She decides to call Harry. She says that she knows he's in Europe and he never really answers his phone, but maybe he could get closer to Norman somehow so she can investigate. Plus it'll be nice to talk to him. She hasn't in such a long time. She calls him and once again, no answer. She flicks through their messages. We get a load of messages from MJ, but none back from Harry. Why does Harry never answer? MJ thinks to herself. She thinks that it's weird, but it's been going on for so long that she's kinda used to it. We move on later in the story to when Kraven is about to track down Spider-Man. This is when we are introduced to a brand new mob group, just like in the first game you had the Raft prisoners, the Sable troops, etc. Here we will have thugs that are helping Kraven. These will come in small patrol groups of around 5 to 10 a group, and will consist of Kraven-like weaponry. You have to use your spider sense to dodge throwing spears and a bunch of other stuff like that. There will be a range of thugs including fast-moving ones with katana-like weaponry and others that will be slower moving but big and muscular and harder to take down. The game will tell you to defeat 5 of these groups as a tutorial. In the meantime, we will get a scene with Miles and MJ. We will switch to Miles in the story as he swings to Peter's new house in Queens to meet MJ. MJ will go on to tell him about everything that has been going on with Norman and thinks that it's suspicious he's working with Kraven. But she tried to tell Peter, but Peter wouldn't believe her. He's angry, and whatever that suit is, it's doing something bad to him. Miles says that he'll figure it out. This is the point in the story in which we'll spend a lot of time with Miles. We spent a lot of time with Peter and the symbiote at this point, so we will catch up with Miles' side of the story. This portion of the game will be crucial to the overall story, as this will be the point in which MJ and Miles will uncover Norman's secret. This will be a long section of the game, although I'm mainly just glossing over it here. But there will be a couple of MJ missions where we will end up sneaking into Oscorp to uncover what Norman is hiding. In the first game, it was usually Peter that would help her on these stakeout missions, but this time it will be Miles. They will sneak around Oscorp, and Miles will be telling MJ that maybe Norman doesn't have anything to hide, and maybe MJ is just being paranoid. MJ will say that she can feel it. She knows that Norman is up to something. She tells Miles about the shady business that Norman had with Martin Lee and Otto Octavius, and that the symbiote is in a long line of things that Norman doesn't want the people to know about. She talks about how she saw him with Kraven and that it wasn't normal. Norman is never desperate. There is something he doesn't want us to know. And since Peter is the symbiote, maybe it could help them both pull him back. The missions with them will continue until both MJ and Miles figure out the truth. They will sneak into a lab in Oscorp and uncover the secret. Harry Osborn was never in Europe, but in fact here in New York, dying. And MJ quickly realizes that Norman wasn't trying to hide some shady dealings or some criminal activity. Norman was just trying to save his son. She discovers through some files left on the side that the symbiote was meant to be there to help Harry live. It was at this moment that MJ breaks down. Her childhood friend is dying. Her and Miles must contact Peter immediately. They need to get that suit back for Harry's sake, not just for his. We cut back to Peter, who is becoming suspicious of these Kraven groups around the city. He wonders what Kraven could be up to now. Eventually, the next mission will lead us to stake out another one of these groups, as Peter becomes suspicious. This mission will not be with Miles, as at this point in the story, this runs alongside what is happening with MJ. But everything has built up to this fight with Peter and Kraven. Obviously, we're glossing over the story here, but you could imagine some other reasons, just small little tidbits here and there that happen in between now and the start of the fanfiction that really drive Peter's emotion through the roof in this game. We really want to emphasize the fact that Peter is in all this stress and anger, and it's been brought out by the symbiote. This mission will eventually lead to our next encounter with Kraven. Kraven will say that he's been using these small groups of people to help track him down, and Peter asks what he wants with him. Kraven says that he wants that suit off him, and Peter says that he is not getting it, and then a fight ensues. This fight is a lot tougher than our first fight with Kraven. This time Kraven is quicker and has a lot more tools at his disposal. But just like Kraven, we also come equipped with new symbiote abilities in comparison to the first fight. The fight comes to a close and we eventually win. However, in the cutscene we end up beating Kraven down so heavily that Kraven starts to beg for his life, saying that he thought he was a hero. It is at this point that Peter is at his lowest, consumed by the symbiote. He screams at Kraven, "Why did you want the symbiote? Why do you want this suit?" And Kraven says that he can't tell him. His anger is built up and has only been fed off by the symbiote, and he's almost too far gone. Until, out of nowhere, Miles and MJ manage to track Peter down. This is when we will get a Black Cat style chase sequence between Peter and Miles. Peter will eventually go over the edge, and this is where we switch to Miles in the game. Peter will also start to swing away, and Miles will have to chase after him. This chase scene will lead to another fight sequence as the city's news outlets start gathering word on the Kraven Spider-Man fight. They will both end up at the Trinity Church, where Miles finally catches and stops Peter. Peter says that he doesn't want to be lectured any longer, and Miles says that he's got to listen to him. That suit is venom. It's poison. Peter says that he's done listening, and they engage in a fight. Miles Morales isn't trying to hurt Peter, but Peter is going for it. This is a real test for Miles, the biggest test he's ever had in his Spider-Man career. As Miles in the scene, we have to fend off from the symbiote, not just the symbiote, but Spider-Man himself, which will be one of the hardest bosses in the franchise thus far, due to how overpowered Spider-Man is anyway without the symbiote. Miles throughout the fight will also be trying to tell him about Harry, saying he's got to listen. Eventually, Miles finds a way to beat Peter using his Venom Blast. He didn't want to hurt him, but he had to. He realizes that shocks hurt the symbiote, so uses it more until Peter is down and weak. Miles screams at Peter saying, "You should have listened to me." Miles rants, almost on the brink of tears, saying that everyone he knows has gone down this dark path, and whatever that suit is doing to you is pushing you that same way. He says to Peter that you promised this would never happen, but it's happened. Miles gets through to Peter as we see a sign of remorse. Miles goes on to tell a weakened Peter about Harry as well. Peter is in denial. He says, "Don't you dare bring him into this." Miles says it's true as MJ rushes to the scene, trailing the Spider-Man. Out of breath, she says it's true as well. MJ has seen Harry with her own eyes. Peter questions them, and MJ explains that Harry was never in Europe and that she's been doing some digging on Norman Osborn, trying to find out why Norman was working with Kraven. Peter will say, "Working with Kraven," and MJ will say that's what she's been trying to tell him. Kraven has been coming after Peter to get the symbiote back for Norman. Peter is confused, and MJ goes on to say that that's not the point, it's Harry. She says her and Miles went to Oscorp to do some digging and found out what it was really for. It was for Harry's survival, and they've got to get it back to him. Peter doesn't believe it. With everything in perspective, he reflects and looks back at what he's done. He almost killed Kraven. He let his ego get in the way of him and his emotions when trying to catch the lizard. He allowed the symbiote to make him block everyone out of his life when everyone could see that this suit was driving him in the wrong direction all this time. He realizes this now. Peter says that he needs to get it off. He tells Miles to shock him again. Miles is naively unsure until MJ gives him the go-ahead. MJ turns away as Peter screams out in pain. Peter says that he can feel it. The suit doesn't want to come off. It's fighting its way back onto his skin. Miles uses his full force on Peter. Playing as Miles, we have to button mash until the symbiote comes off. And finally, the symbiote releases Peter from its grasp. Peter is weak. As he collapses, MJ runs over to him and holds him in her arms. Then helicopters rain outside the church. They tracked the Spider-Man from the Kraven fight, and it's none other than Norman Osborn and Silver Sable with them. After Kraven's defeat, Norman had turned back to Sable for assistance. He used the excuse that Spider-Man was in possession of a dangerous entity. Sable came to help Norman contain it, in which they do, as the symbiote is let free. As the Sable team surround the church, it's our job as Miles to sneak our way out with MJ and a weakened Peter. This will be an intense mission as we have to make sure that Sable nor Norman sees Peter's face. Once the mission comes to a close, Norman will return the symbiote back to Harry. Norman places the symbiote with Harry and bonds it with him. However, something is off. It's not acting the way it was before. The symbiote engulfs Harry. Norman screams his son's name in desperation as he has no idea what's going on. He starts twitching in the machine as it explodes, and a dark figure rises up and says one thing: "We are Venom." Thank you all for watching the third part in my pre-write for Marvel's Spider-Man 2. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button to let the YouTube algorithm know that you enjoyed this video. And also make sure to hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss part 4. And also make sure to hit the notifications next to the subscribe button so you do not miss another part as soon as it gets released on the channel. With that being said, thank you all for watching. Make sure to join the Discord in the description down below. If you don't have an account, just make one. It takes like 2 seconds, and then you can be involved in the conversation with me and a bunch of other Spider-Man fans, and you continue the conversation about everything Spider-Man, including all the news and all the videos that I post and everything like that. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and peace.